Hey guys, Katie Bertrand here with So Cute by Katie, and welcome to our YouTube channel. If you're new here, thanks for joining me, and if you'll please hit that subscribe button, I would appreciate it so much. Today we're going to be showing you how to applique a sweatshirt. We have some sorority letters that we're doing for our friend, and I just thought it would be fun to share with you the process. So let me get the camera a little bit closer. So as you can see, applique is where you take fabric and it stitches around, the stitching is only around the edges, and then you have fabric inside. So that kind of cuts down on your stitch count, but there is a process to it. So supplies that you will need a shirt, sweatshirt or t-shirt. You're going to need some of this. It's on a roll. It's called Heat and Bond Light. It looks like paper on one side, and then it is, you can kind of see it, it's got a sticky adhesive, it's got a texture to it. And then you will need your material. We're just using one material. Some designs, if you've got like an image, you're going to have multiple pieces, we're using this fabric. So what you need to do first is cut your material to fit your hoop or your design. So I've already pre-cut this, but you also need to cut your heat and bond and then iron it to the back. So you'll have the texture side to the fabric. The paper side is what you're ironing on. You iron this on just like this, and then this actually peels off. So I don't know, it's hard to see. See how it looks a little shiny? Let me see here. There you go, kind of see that sheen. So that is the adhesive sticking to the material. This is an absolute must if you're doing applique, because after we get done stitching, we're going to press our applique, and that adheres it to the material, and then it makes it continue to hold up and look great after it is washed. If you don't, that fabric can wrinkle, it can shrink a little bit, and it will not look good. So, since we're doing a sweatshirt, I have some Cutaway Stabilizer. So this is another must on anything that has stretch to it. So any t-shirt or sweatshirt, it's got a little bit of stretch to it. You always need to use Cutaway Stabilizer. For this design, I am using my large hoop to fit the letters, because they wouldn't fit in the 5x7. Even though I've got a lot of space around it, they're just too big for the other hoop. So we are going to be using the larger hoop. And then to figure out how much stabilizer I need, I just kind of hold this over. And then, excuse me. Let's see. I just make sure I have just enough to cover. So, and then we'll trim this off. Okay, so we're going to grab our other sweatshirt. Lay out our sweatshirt here. I'm going to put my hoop bottom in the inside. Now I'm taking my stabilizer and I'm going to lay it on top of that hoop inside the sweatshirt. This is a little tricky. You want to make sure that your sweatshirt underneath, the stabilizer and everything is smooth, and make sure that it is covering the hoop. Let me smooth this out. I'm holding my sweatshirt. I want that hoop right at the top of the neck there, because the design is going to be in the center of the hoop. You also need to make sure that it is straight. So I can feel, I've got my stabilizer, you can see it sticking up, and I can check under here too. It's covering the bottom of the hoop, so we are good. I've got my markings on my hoop. There's these little notches right here that shows me the center of the hoop. And I'm going to line that up with the center of my sweatshirt. I am kind of eyeballing this. If it helps you though, you can take your sweatshirt, fold it in half and iron it and give yourself a crease down the center. And I'm putting my hoop right on the neckline there. This is a big hoop, so I lean on it. That way I've kind of used my body a little bit just to hold that in there. Okay, so next you want to make sure, hold it up, make sure your hoop is straight, and then you will take your material. I'm just going to lay this right in here. This is how I like to do it. I do mine, I kind of skip a step. So in the process of applique, what it does is it will do an outline of my letters that I'm doing, and then you can put your material down to make sure you've got it covered. I've done this enough that I already know I'm good. I'm just going to lay my material down, let it go ahead and do the tack down stitch. So I kind of skip what they call the placement. The very first round of applique is placement. The next round is your tack down, tacking down your material. You'll trim it, and then it will go around and do the satin stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and take this over to the machine and get it set up to start stitching and do that tack down stitch for me. So let's head to the machine. Okay, we're back, and now we have our shirt on the hoop. I'm going to back this up just a little bit. And I've got my design. I'll show you over here on the screen. So that's what we're going to be stitching. I want to show you how this, so we're going to hit the sewing button. So the very first step, I'm just going to hit advance through this so you can see it on the screen maybe. It will change. It does each letter right here. And it shows you, it does the exact same thing. So the next is another outline. Another outline. Now it gets thicker and it's showing you it's going to do the satin stitch. So that is the order. It does placement stitch, tack down stitch. I'm going to go ahead and just let it run the first two, then I will stop it. I'll take the sweatshirt off, I'll trim around the material, and then I will skip section 2, the tack down, because it'll already be tacked down, and then we'll move on to the satin stitch. So let's go ahead and tell it to start here in just a second. Let you all seeing this. So one letter is tacked down. to stop it. Now we're going to take our hoop off, and then we're going to go trim. I know you can't see it. Let's see if we can get a little closer. You can kind of see that stitching right there. We're going to go trim right around that and cut out that center hole very carefully so that we can do this satin stitch. So let's go trim it. Okay, I'm going to take my double curved scissors. These are my favorite scissors to use for applique because you can get down over that hoop. It's got a little point, curves up. And I just cut into the material, cut up to the stitch line, being very careful not to cut the stitch line. This is where you have to practice good cutting skills. They have some other scissors they call applique scissors. They kind of have what they call a duckbill shape. I have some of those, but I have always found now that I have these work better. I like the shape of them. I probably could have used more of a contrasting color so I could see this thread. This white stitching is a little hard to see in this pattern. So that may be a little tip I can give you. Maybe use a more contrasting thread for your tack down. Now, I'm going to get some. These aren't. I'm going to get my little snips that are really sharp and pointy. So now I'm cutting out the center of the letter, and I just got to kind of stab the material and get it started. So you need some little, and I have some another pair of these. It's a different brand. I think they are Ginger, and they're a little bit pointier than this, and they will stab it. This one's not quite as pointy, but we need to trim out the center. And then we have two center openings over here on this letter. So this is a tricky part too, because you just want to grab the fabric, not the sweatshirt. So I've got that started. And this is actually pulling up that Wonder Under, or Heat and Bond, sorry. Okay, so now we have everything trimmed out. You can see how we cut out that opening on both of those. We're going to take it back to the machine and let the satin stitch run, and it will be finished. Now when you put these back on the machine, and I'm so glad I checked this, I was like, make sure it does go through the opening and you're not catching any of the underside of the shirt. Okay, we're back on the machine and we are ready to do our satin stitch. So we'll go ahead and start our machine and let it start doing the satin stitch. applique is finished. Ta-da! So one more step after we take it out of the hoop. Actually, two more steps. So what you will need to do is turn it inside out. You will need to trim off all the excess stabilizer. And once you do that, turn it right side in. Then you will want to take it over to the iron and give it a good press. And this is the process for any applique. So I hope you have enjoyed this video on machine embroidery, doing some applique. It's really fun. It's really fun to pick out different fabrics, and you can just make it a completely different look with different fabrics. And the stitching around the edge, the satin stitch, you can make that contrasting colors, however you want to do it. So until next time, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and if you want to get notified for the next video, hit the little bell and you'll get a notification when our next video becomes available. Thanks so much.